Get rolling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast, the podcast, The Highest Ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce Hendricks, looking a good, probably 8 to 9 years older now than when you last saw me. I'm married, so that changed since the last time we hopped on, and I've been working on a farm for the last couple weeks. That's why we haven't been recording, because I found out for the first time in my life doing real actual work. That's not necessarily true, but kind of true. That during harvest, you work 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, and so it's been really hard to find time to record a podcast. So we took about a month off. Actually, it's exactly a month from when our last podcast released, as we sit here, Coop. But we're going to be back with maybe not a vengeance, but with a little bit of fervor. We're going to do some redrafts. We're going to look ahead to some rookies and sophomores, all in the coming weeks. And then, I think for the first time in a long time, Coop, we're going to keep going like through the start of the NBA season, through the start of the NCAA season. Generally, when I was coaching college, we were taking, those first few months of the college basketball season off, sometimes even the whole college basketball season basically completely off. And that's just not going to happen in the same way this year, which is exciting and new, and maybe will actually allow us to grow from where we've kind of just been steady. We've been like the exact same size of podcast for 4 years, but maybe it'll take some steps. But we're excited about it either way. And today we're redrafting 2018, which is truly a historic draft. I mean, we'll talk about this, but probably one of the best drafts of all time. And I'm very excited, and I'm excited to do it with my good friend Coop. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I look like I siphoned off all those years of age from you. I look about 16 with a fully shaved face, but I'm very excited. This draft is weird. This was the first draft I truly paid attention to. 2017. It's like I really started watching the Rockets and basketball in general after that draft happened. So I didn't scout any of those guys. But this year I was listening to all the draft podcasts. I was watching college basketball. I was doing all this stuff. So this is very fun in that way. But also just, holy fuck, this class is deep. Oh my God. It goes and goes and goes. There's so many guys still in the NBA. And, most classes, it's only guys who matters. It's your top 20. It's this class, it's yeah, actually your top 40 mattered. These guys have just stuck. They have stuck around, some for good reasons, some for not good reasons. But I'm excited. I believe I get to start here with the first pick, if you don't have anything else to.
You do. I want to quickly just jump in here and do a little kind of rundown of what the draft actually went like. So, and we'll do this kind of pick by pick. But entering this draft, and I'm with you. So this was actually the first year I started paying attention. I did not make a board this year, but for the most part, I hadn't paid attention to pretty much college or NBA basketball leading up to this. And then I break my ankle in October of this year, and I'm in a boot for about 4 months. And I'm like, let's fucking start listening to podcasts. And so I'm listening to podcasts, and through podcasts, I started gaining a love of the draft, and I started paying attention to the draft. And, I had some intrigue, and I'm not going to bore anyone by saying who I liked and who I didn't like. I thought McCall Bridges was the second coming of Jesus Christ because I loved long wings who I thought could play defense and shoot. I was the 3-and-D draft. I was Daryl Morey as a young 16-year-old basketball lover and player. I was like, how can I just, and it, I think it stems from my love of Klay Thompson. I was like, could I build a championship team of just Klay Thompson? Could I just have 11 Klay Thompsons and win a championship? So obviously I liked Luka. I thought Luka was great. The Great White Hope or whatever, and hated all centers. So I thought I had DeAndre Ayton probably in my 50s or something. I was that was kind of how I started absorbing it, and it was so funny because the person I remember watching the most at this time, it wasn't a podcast, it was YouTube videos, it was J. Kyle Mann. And he's talking about these guys, and he's talking about Luka Doncic as like this unbelievable wonderkind. Like, is he like, he's like comparing him to LeBron in multiple sentences. And then, and this is not to like call him out, there were a lot of people who had this long. I believe he had Marvin Bagley that they're ranked ahead of Luka Doncic. And there always felt like there was this weird dissonance to me with how Luka was discussed versus where he ended up being ranked. And that shown out in that DeAndre Ayton goes first to the Suns. Now, DeAndre Ayton was, even though he's from the Bahamas, went to high school in Arizona, then went to the University of Arizona in Tucson. And so it's a little bit of that, I think, played into it. But then there was also a lot of talk of, well, Luka is like a shooting guard kind of, and how could he fit with Devin Booker? And, you know, I remember hearing that. And, you know, then Marvin Bagley goes to the Kings. And Marvin Bagley was the number one player in the high school class, unbelievably productive as, you know, a college freshman, as an offensive big. But I remember even at the time people being like, but Duke did have to go to like a zone a lot to hide him because defensively he was so rough at times. And it's so funny how that played out. Like, it felt like a slow motion car crash that everyone knew was happening, but no one wanted to hit the brakes because the obvious guy in this class was the guy who went at 3, Luka Doncic. Right, Coop? That's the obvious best guy in this class?
In 2018, yes. Back in the day, Luka was the best prospect in this class. I will give you that. He's not my first overall pick here. I'm going to take the guy who has been the best player in the world for multiple years. I think he's incredible. I don't know, you know, I think he's not a fat slob, and so that's why he's going to go here at 1. His name is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not unheralded, but very much lesser so heralded. You know, there was all this talk, I remember, of the 3 guards in this draft, and it's Trey, Sexton, and Shai. And Trey's the guy who you like if you really like skilled guard play. And Sexton's the guy who you like if you like the intersection of skill and athleticism. And Shai's the guy you just like if you like athletic guards. And I think that's insane because Shai has now become the most skilled of the 3 and is the most athletic. And he's just incredible. I think, you know, there's only so many things I could say here that would be new about the reigning. Is he reigning MVP? Two-time reigning MVP? You know, championship winner, should have beaten the Spurs if the rest of his team didn't shit their pants, and then would have obliterated the Knicks in the finals. Nobody can tell me I'm wrong because it's a theoretical. So, but this is a guy who, at the end of the day, is the best player on multiple championship level teams. He is the engine for this team. He's the most unstoppable closer in basketball for my money. He's a two-way player and super, super unique. So a very easy 1 for me here, even though just a few years ago, I think Luka would have been the easy pick here at 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll nerd out a little bit about Shai, you know, 4-time All-NBA, won a championship as the best player, 2-time MVP as a finals MVP. You know, all that stuff is great. You know, averaged was the scoring, won the scoring title in his first MVP year, 32.7 points on 51.9, 37.5, 89.8 shooting splits, takes a crazy amount of free throws. You know, you look at his advanced stats in you know, the last kind of 4-year window has had a, you know, 9.1 RAPM, one of the best offensive RAPMs in that time, like imaginable. You could limit it to 1 year and you can look, and last year was actually quite a significant step down from his first MVP year because the defense fell off a good amount, specifically his impact on turnovers and his impact on rebounding. Some of that I wouldn't really say is him. I mean, a lot of that probably has more to do with Hartenstein and Chet and the minutes he's playing with those guys. But I do think that's fairly notable. But he's always been an insane improver of his offensive true shooting. It improves his team's turnover rates quite a bit. Is just kind of an unbelievable offensive player. And I like to go back and think, well, what lessons can we learn from his stat profile at the very least? And the college one is like you see this and it's like, yeah, I mean, this looks like an 11th pick. You know, he only took 2.6 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. Now he just shoot 40%. That's great. Was an elite free throw shooter. Got to the line a good amount. 46.2 free throw rate. He dunked 11 times, which is good. Not even like an insane interior finisher, though. 59.3. Not an insane long two shooter. 37.7%. Really good assist rate. 28.8. 19.8 turnover rate's not bad. 1.9 assist turnover is good. You know, I'm something I'm going to talk about way more this year is my problem with assist rate as a stat and turnover rate as a stat, and kind of how we can, especially like it's more about meeting a baseline than it is like the top end look of assist or turnover rate. But I don't want to get too into that. But there's nothing crazy that pops out about his statistical profile other than an 8.1 BPM, which some people, you know, that really matters. To me, I'm still a bit more skeptical on that, but the 57.9 true shooting is good, but it's really just the combination of feel and touch for him. And he's not crazy high feel for a point guard. Like he's not Tyrese Halliburton or Steve Nash. In fact, I would say that like 15 years ago, he'd probably just be playing shooting guard. You know, he'd be an off guard, but the league has kind of moved away from those types of players. And it's, you know, they'd rather just have the guy that they're going to have ISO in the half court anyways, just bring the ball up. But, you know, this is an obvious pick. It was not necessarily obvious at the time, but he is fascinating. And it's fascinating how his profile has changed because he also feels bulletproof. If he was not this level of scorer, I think he would have just ramped up the defense and been one of the better defensive guards in the NBA, you know, and used his feel and length and athleticism on that end really effectively. You know, this was just like a really safe player who has just developed and has been just kind of unbelievable over the last 2 years. You know, maybe you would even say the last 4 years have all been just incredible, but he's just a really fun basketball player. And I think the obvious pick, this is where I'm going to potentially open up some discussion here. This is a 3-person draft. We're choosing truthfully between 3 guys. I'm going to go with Luka Doncic here. And there is definitely an argument for Jalen Brunson after what he just did, getting his team to the finals and winning a championship and winning a finals MVP. And that's all great. I still have this belief somewhere in me that in 15 years, we might still look back and say, Luka should have gone number 1 in this draft. I still think there's a world that it happens. When things are right for Luka, when his body's good enough, when he's, you know, the team around him has what it takes, he is still the most like electric basketball player I've maybe ever seen. Like there is still no one to me that just like is a god with the rock in the way that he is in terms of just like, I can't believe what I'm watching. Shea, it's like, he is sort of an evolution of like the tough shot making, again, mostly off guards of the past. I think of the Kobe's and the MJs and those types of guys. Luka is much more of an ilk that I prefer watching from like a pure lizard brain basketball wise, and that like he's in that LeBron, Grant Hill type category where it's like just this unbelievable playmaking wing, physical presence. Just when things really get going, he's unstoppable. Not because he's just making shots over hands, but because his size and genius are just impossible to deal with. And you know, maybe Grant Hill wasn't the best guy to bring up. It's more like Magic and Bird, right? Like those are the guys to me he's in conversation with. Obviously, he has not done it to the extent of SGA, and he should not go over SGA. But I still think there's a chance that it could get there. He's a 2-time scoring champ, 6-time All-NBA, won the 23-24 Western Conference Finals MVP as they made the finals and lost to the Boston Celtics. He has been really snake bitten in 24-25. He only played 50 games and the numbers dropped off, and that Dallas team was really bad. And then he was part of the most shocking trade ever. Last year, he played 64 games and is just kind of that step below the efficiency margin you would want. And that shows up in terms of how he's kind of listed on some more advanced stat pages. Like last year was just not particularly strong for him. His effect on offensive true shooting is whatever. His effect on offensive turnover rate is kind of whatever. And then he's a bad defender. And so again, I will say that I think he is a worse player than SGA. But there's a world to me still where it's like he just kind of like over the next few years wins a couple MVPs, wins a couple rings, and is just like at his best pound for pound. Like if it was like I wanted to build a team around just one of these two guys, there's a world that I still lean Luka. Like the Thunder are just so immaculately built that it's hard to contend with them. And it's not like that's not Shea's fault. He's obviously a huge part of that. But they're unbelievable defensive team around him. He has great insulation for him to do what he needs to. Now, they're not the greatest spacing team, and we saw that kind of come into play against the Spurs, where he was just being gapped, like his teammates were being gapped off like crazy. But in terms of being able to exploit teams for doing those types of gimmicky defenses, I do trust Luka more. Luka is so fascinating, and I want so badly for him to succeed in the way that Shea has. And I don't know that's going to happen, and that's why he can't go one. But I do still, even though Jalen Brunson has crested that mountaintop, I still don't think I honestly don't even know that there's an argument that he's a better player than Luka. Coop, I think you might fall on the other side of the fence here. So that was a lot of me waxing poetic. Where are you at with what you would have done here? And then if you want to talk about Brunson, I'm guessing that's your pick at 3. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the Luka is a one of one in many, many ways. He's also a one of one in the way that he is lazy and annoying. And I just how much of a pain in the ass you have to be to get traded for Anthony Davis and bullshit, despite just bringing your team to the finals. It's, obviously Nico Harrison is awful. He's the worst. But there is something to be said for, yes, you're so talented. There's an argument Luka is the better basketball player, even than Shea. But at some point, if you cannot get it done, maybe you are contributing to it with some of your negativity, whether that's on the defensive end, whether that's with the foul baiting and then not getting back on defense whenever you don't get a whistle, and then whatever else you want to do, and the flopping and the negativity breeds negativity, and negativity loses games. And as much as it is I want this to just be about basketball, and it's who's the better basketball player? Jalen Brunson's been he's proven himself. He's been a leader for this team that was poorly coached, for years under Tom Thibodeau, and then they get Mike Brown, and he's able to carry them over the hump against a talented young Spurs team, and through the East they just obliterate teams, truly, truly obliterate them. This Knicks offense was just electric in so many ways, and I love Cat, we love Cat. But Brunson's the guy, right? You could make the argument Luka's never had a running mate as good as Cat. He's never had a team as good as these other guys. And I think that's the most fair argument against Luka, is that his 2 GMs are Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison. And so the team construction around him just does not allow him to compete at the same level as these other guys. But, at some point, I think you have to take someone for you have to take someone for the actions they have for the things they have done and for the way they have acted, right? And for the things that have happened to them because of these actions, and not just excuse. It's been 8-9 years of Luka doing Luka things, and I think he's objectively, over the course of those 8 years, the best player. But I'm going for peak. I want guys who are going to be able to give me 2, 3, 4 elite years where I can actually win a championship. And I don't know if Luka's got it. I just don't.
I think that's really interesting. For what it's worth, if you look at the advanced metrics, Jalen Brunson is, good, but not like anywhere near the level of those top two guys. I mean, Shea has kind of had like an unbelievable, especially if you look at just 2 years, but a 4-year run of just like, he's been, it's like these last 4 years for Shea have been the level of like, 2014 through 2018 Curry. It's like he's in that echelon in terms of like what is happening, prime Jokic similar, like, +9, 4-year RAPM. That's like very rare. Jalen Brunson is way more modest. And Luka as well is, offensively like third in LeBron over the last 4 years, fourth in Darko, eighth in Laker. I mean, you can say what you want. And all of these have, I think, in my general belief on like these one number metrics, like it's bad to use them to like separate like one tier. Like the difference between 4 and 5 in these metrics is rare, or rarely matters, I should say. But like, Brunson is like solidly in a lower tier than those guys consistently. Like he's just not quite to the level of those top two guys in terms of his statistics. It's definitely a little bit more of an anecdotal argument. I do think that this Knicks team was just well run and well coached in a way that Luka hasn't had. Now, some of that is Luka, and I think that's fair. And that's why I think it's such a fun argument between those guys. But there's still a part of me that thinks it would be easier to build a true championship team around Luka. Teams just haven't been able to do it. Partially, the other fun story here is, has a team ever so sufficiently won a draft and then fucked it up over the course of the 6 years since it happened than the Dallas Mavericks? I mean, you drafted two guys who are, I'm lower on Brunson. Like I'm the type of guy, like if you ask me to make a top 10, top 15 player, like I'd rather have Tyrese Haliburton than Jalen Brunson. Like, I don't know if that's crazy or not, but it's true. Like that's where I'm at. But still, two at least top 15 guys, probably two top 10 guys. Luka is probably top 5. You could have had, two guys who are good enough to be the best player on championship teams on your team, and you lost them both for very, very little, accomplishing very little over that time. We've had 8 champions in 8 years. It's a, thing you're going to continue to hear all the time. I think there's definitely a chance that the Lakers could win in the next handful of years. Do I think it's likely? No, I think Walker Kessler's not that good. And, Mamu as your starting 4 is like fun, but I'm not sure that's like your championship equity is going through the roof there. But it's not impossible, right? Like there's all types of things can happen. If that Mavericks team just like stays together, if they just give Brunson his max and they just like figure it out, they just continue to put like athletic forwards and bigs around that group, like do they get one of these championships in the next handful of years? I mean, yeah, I think there's really a chance. It's really unfortunate. Where to go from here is a fascinating question. I think you could argue that in the real draft, this is where it started to open up too, in terms of the questions of where guys go. I think I'm going to go at 4, where the real life draft went at 4, and I'm going to take Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is fascinating because he is like the most like pick your pick your poison in terms of what you want to do positionally and who he really is. Like he is a horrendous passer, can't make plays for others at all, really bad rebounder for even a forward, but especially if you're going to ask him to play the 5. But he can really, really shoot. He can really block shots, and he's like an elite isolation scorer. Jaren is has won a Defensive Player of the Year. Come on, accolades, pull up. He's 3-time All Defense. Just kind of, he's still super young. Like he's still a good year younger than most of these guys. He's only 20. This will be his age 27 season. So like, still arguably like 3 to 4 years of prime left. Obviously, I'm rooting for him now that he's in Utah. At his best, he's just kind of like an unbelievable 4. At his worst, he is incredibly, incredibly frustrating because, if he could just rebound, he'd be a 5. If he was a good rebounder, he would just be a 5, and all of a sudden he'd be the best or second best shooting 5 of all time. But he's not. He just can't really play center. And so he's kind of in this weird mold. But I still think like your over-under in terms of like championship equity, he is a step above the other 2 guys that I have in this tier. And so, that's maybe saying something because one of those guys has won a championship. There's actually a lot of guys that have won championships in this draft, as we'll kind of get to. Jalen Broach and Shea both have won one. I'm taking someone who hasn't here, but I really like Jaren Jackson. I think he is a really fun player, a pretty easy take for me. Again, doesn't pop like crazy on advanced metrics, especially last year was, kind of a step down. But has had years where he's been so unbelievable in terms of his effect on his opponent's rim finishing that, you're kind of just, all it takes is one of those years to swing the right way with the team around him. And all of a sudden they could be the best or second best defense. And he's a good offensive player, if not maybe the most advantageous type of offensive player. So I like Jaren at 4. I've always liked Jaren, and even more so now that he is a Jazz man. Coop, where are you going here at 5?
5 is where it really opens up. I feel like Jaren is very easily the 4th best player in this class. And this is where you start to get to the difficult decision. I have 2 guys here left before we start to get to like basically guys who I see as stars in their role. And I think I'm going to go with the guy who can more easily contribute to winning basketball. The guy we've seen contribute to winning basketball time and time again. I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges here at 5. I was a Mikal guy back in the day. I think I had him at 2 on my personal board behind Luka. Just a huge fan of guys who are good at basketball. I kind of lost that for a little bit in the middle, but I've made my way back. Mikal, he's a weird defender because he's not like this stopper, right? Like he's not this ISO stopper who you can just throw on anyone and he'll like clamp every single person. But he's just great off ball. He's got great instincts. He can guard enough positions well enough to just like be valuable. He like flies around the court. He tries hard. He plays a ton of minutes. He's an Iron Man. And I think the big thing is he just doesn't give anything up, right? Maybe he can't take layups and maybe he won't take them and he's not that good and he's going to take a lot of stupid pull-up 2s. But sometimes you just need a guy in the playoffs who can hit a stupid pull-up midi and can knock down the 3 ball with consistency and not give up anything on like anything big on the defensive end. And he can do enough dribbling for a wing. And he's just so long and he's so like cerebral in so many ways. And I'm going to take that over the other guy in this tier because we know he's a winner, right? And at the end of the day, I do think that is more important than guy who we're not sure is a winner, but is really good at basketball, right? So I'm happy here with Mikal. Winner with the Suns, winner with the Knicks. Just sucks he got thrown to the Nets to go fuck around and do nothing for a few years.
I think this is 100% the right pick. Mikal, I'm so happy that he got to be, and now he's really the 4th best player on that team, but still like a really important part of a championship team. I mean, that was really like a unit. Again, Jalen Brunson is great. He's not like just like the one man lift. It's not LeBron on the Cavs, like just this one guy lifting a team to the championship. Like that was a unit that won the championship. He was a big part of that. And I'm so happy because I was worried that he was becoming more famous for like a contract and being traded for like 4 first-round picks. Like the Knicks gave up a ton to get him. And I feel like now we've kind of come back around to appreciating him for what he is, which is a solid, like just someone who is never in the wrong place. He's an elite off-ball mover on both ends. Understands space like no one else. Great closeout guy. Probably my favorite like closeout defender in basketball. He's not an elite like shutdown point of attack guy, and he is no longer an elite like I'm gonna get a ton of steals guy. But he's just in the right place all the time. Long arms. He makes shots. He is again a great off-ball mover. Super, physically like he does not seek contact at all. He's kind of physically weak, but like you said, he's an Iron Man. Games played. 82 games as a rookie, 73 his second year, which was cut short by COVID. I believe he played in every game, played all of the 72 games in 2021, 82, 83, 82, 82, 82. He has played in every game, maybe for his whole career. Is that right? Has he missed a single game? I mean, maybe a playoff game because I'm just looking at Basketball Reference, but just like an unbelievable Iron Man. Unbelievable Iron Man. I really, really love Mikal Bridges. That's 100% the right pick. That does leave me with, I think this is like, I have to take this guy, and I don't really have like a great feel for him anymore, but I'm going to take Trae Young. He's my last guy in this tier. I think the most talented player left. There was a time where he was an insane offensive player. 2021, he was arguably like a top 5 offensive player in basketball. Just like absolutely monster offensive basketball player, and that he was heliocentric in a time where that was like something that we really cared about. And he's not anymore. Like he's not a heliocentric level guy anymore because he's not that level of shooter and not that level of grifter. The thing that has really changed is the defensive rules changed. That's allowed defense to be more physical. And he's really struggled with that. Still an elite passer, still a really good like floater guy, makes shots, even if he's not maybe like a truly elite pull-up shooter. Really fun player. I think he could help teams win. That Hawks team became less and less built for him as time went on. If you're willing to build a team for him, I think he could still be plenty reasonable. I think there's just very little championship equity with Trae Young. And this Wizards contract is horrible, and he's going to be more known for that. But I don't want to be forgotten that there was a time where we're like, hey, maybe this is a 3-headed monster draft with Luka, Trae, and Shea as like the 3 guys. And that is still like the flashes of that are still so fun and so interesting. And I do think he's accomplished quite a bit more than the next group of guys we're going to talk about. But I will say, in terms of just pure championship equity, he'd be more like 12th in this class. So, that is kind of the give and take of drafting around this range. Coop, who are you going with here at 7?
Trae's the right pick to me. Got to take, like, he's the requisite level of talent where it's just like, just take him at that point. Now we get into guys that I am just like, these guys are kind of just stars in their role. We get into role players, maybe star level impact for a few years, but not really even. I feel like I have to go with Michael Porter Jr. here at 7, just an elite shooter. I think the story of him with that band that he wears on his leg, like the thing he wears in his shoe that sticks up and supports his lower body, like basically meaning he doesn't get hurt like the same way he was like injury prone pre-draft. One of the coolest things of all time. Too bad he's a fucking nonce. Or else he would be one of the best players of all time. Incredibly skilled shooter, incredible shot maker, just low feel. And that wasn't a problem when he was next to Jokic, really contributed to that championship run. He gets a bit overpaid and gets traded for Cam Johnson. He'll probably get traded to a contender this year, if the Nets are smart at all, because their own picks are going right to the Rockets piggy bank. And you might as well get something. So he's the kind of guy who can contribute to winning basketball on the right team. Like, he'd be a great Piston, right, next to a high feel creator. He's not going to be you're our gravity well, just go out there and just suck all the gravity like the Nets have asked him to do. but he's an incredible shooter. He's a decent defender just because he's tall and kind of mobile, but he's not super high feel. But I feel like here at 7, he's kind of the obvious pick before the rest of this is like 1-year wonders or habitual role players.
Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter is exactly who I would have taken at 7. I think he'd be a great rocket. I don't know if the money makes sense, but if you could trade one of those Nets picks back for Michael Porter Jr., I would do it in a heartbeat. He's a perfect guy for a team that just wants to play really fast, and it's just like, just trail the play and bomb from 40. Like, just fucking let that thing fly. I mean, truly an unbelievable shooter. And again, shockingly, like an unbelievable Iron Man too. Like, other than 21-22 where he got hurt, like, has played quite a bit every year and is just, I mean, one of the best 6'10" and over shooters of all time. Really unbelievable shot maker. Can't dribble, can't pass. The defense has been up and down. I actually thought, like, when he was an important member of a championship team, and he is now the let me see, 1, 2, 3. He's the 4th player out of 7 we've taken who won a championship. And who I'm going to take at 8 is also a championship winner. I'm going to take Robert Williams III. Now, this is a tough one because in terms of, like, racking up your counting stats, like Hall of Fame equity is just not high with this type of guy. Like if this was a baseball redraft, it's not, this is not a guy you care about. But for basketball and for what I care about, this is a guy that helps teams win when it matters most. And all you need to do is get him healthy through the regular season, and he's a huge contributor. The tough thing is there is a 3-year stretch of his career where he played in 61 games across 3 years. That's tough. And now he's a backup. Now he's a really good backup. And when push came to shove, the Trailblazers were like, well, we have to play Robert Williams. Clingan can't survive out on the floor anymore. And I like Clingan still, but there's a reason that they're super happy to have him back, despite the fact that he can barely contribute in the regular season at all. It's because when the going gets tough and it matters, he is unbelievably good. On that 21-22, he won an all defense. Actually, did he not? He must have been gone by the time they won the championship. Did they won the championship in 24, huh?
So I think they traded him for like Malcolm Brogdon or something.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I apologize, but still, that couple year stretch there, he was really good in Boston. He helped them get to a finals, even if he did not help them win a championship. And was just, had a multi-year stretch where he was really, really good when he could be out there. And I think that's the thing. We're getting to a point where it's like, do I want to take guys who are out there all the time but are less good, or guys who it's like, if I can get them there, these are going to be elite 16-game players? I think Williams is a good enough 16-game player that I take him over some of this next group of guys that I still like, but do feel to me a tier below, especially those top 7, but even Williams himself. So speaking of that, we're kind of moving into another tier. This draft is super deep in these types of guys, but we're definitely moving into like role player realm. Like, some of these guys are starters, some of them kind of starters, maybe not full-time, but none of these guys are like obviously really elite, like game-changing players. We're just talking about guys who are contributors in one way or another. So this is going to be a little bit more, I think this is where my board maybe starts to break up. Where are you going here at 9, Coop?
I'm going with the guy I think is the same kind of guy as Rob Will, but just better. I'm going to go with Mitchell Robinson here at 8. For my money, the best offensive rebounder in basketball, like regardless of position. He's incredible. Controls the offensive boards, good finisher on the inside, great defensive rebounder, just cannot stay healthy for the life of him. But when he is healthy, he was a game changer for New York. He always has been. I think this is a guy who just does all the things you want a big to do. I think the Knicks have kind of been at the forefront of this like possession efficiency wave, and Mitchell Robinson is a huge part of that. He got scooped up by the Celtics this offseason, didn't he? Am I crazy?
Yes, he is a Boston Celtic now. Really disgusting. Underrated signing, though he's arguably maybe a little overpaid for what you're expecting from him in the regular season. Really, really funky signing from them in the wake of trading Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, what a weird season for the Celtics. But I think Mitchell Robinson is just the kind of guy who you want on a competitive basketball team. I think he's really good. I think he's really strong, and he plays hard when he can be out there. So he's my kind of obvious pick here.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on Robinson. One of the more fascinating like career changes, and that like he was like this like super stringy high flyer, and then he lost some bounce, but put on a ton of weight, and is now like one of the better one-on-one post defenders in the league. And instead of being this like crash for tip dunks offensive rebounder, he's more of just like you need to send two guys to me, or I will get my hand on the ball and tip it out to OG Anunoby. Just a really, really fun player. Not someone I'm like super high on, but definitely valuable. Where do I go here? It is really interesting. There's like an argument for a lot of different guys. I could take another big, but I think I'm going to go with one of my favorite stories from this draft. And I'm going to take Duncan Robinson here at 10. Robinson undrafted, started at a D3, and has worked his way towards being, I mean, a very consistent starter in this league. I mean, thought maybe he was just like a Heat voodoo magic guy, but he proved last year, at least to me, that he wasn't. I mean, he in 77 games, he was really good and really efficient. One of the the handful of best shooters in the history of the league. He took 7 3-point attempts per game and shot 41%. Like none of those are open. Duncan Robinson is not getting open threes. He's always having to, sprint into them, set his feet quick, do some bullshit to get it up. Like really, really good additive offensive player in the regular season. Once you get to the playoffs, he's a real question. Last year, I actually thought he was completely fine, completely reasonable. He was on the floor to close a lot of games. He's found his ways to be okay enough at funneling drivers to help. He's not stopping anybody, but there's still definitely some concerns that push comes to shove. In like, if he was playing the Knicks in the conference finals, they'd beat the Cavs. That might not have worked very well for him. But he's a perfectly reasonable guy here at this level. One of the handful of guys left who is like a starter in the NBA. I think for most, like he would start for a lot of teams. A lot of teams are like, I just need one of the, he's arguably right now the second best shooter in the NBA. I mean, is that crazy to say? I'm not fully sure right now, but a lot of teams could use the second best player in the NBA despite his flaws. And so really, really fun basketball player, fun story, and happy to get him here at 10. Coop, where are you going at 11?
My new bit is that I'm gonna try to take just championship winners as far as I can go. I just kind of realized I've only taken guys who have won a championship so far. So I'm gonna go with a guy who was an incredible contributor to the Nuggets championship, but also was a major role player on those Nets teams that could have won a championship. I'm gonna go with Bruce Brown here. Bruce Brown kind of started a trend. Everybody wanted a Bruce Brown, a short rolling guard who could screen and make kick out passes and be kind of tough defensively. That was kind of trendy for a few years ago there. I don't know if you remember that. That was a weird time to be alive. But he then goes to the Nuggets, plays next to Jokic, just a really solid defender. He shot it well enough to space the floor, but then also he could just make enough, connector passes next to Jokic to be so valuable. Played hard, hustled, and I mean, that's the kind of player you want on a championship team. So he's kind of fallen off the last few years. He hasn't been as effective. He came in back to the Nuggets bench unit. I thought they'd be unstoppable, but he's looked a bit more human as of late. So he's kind of getting. I might have taken him even with my last pick over Mitchell Robinson if he was still producing at the level he was in the past. But he's just not that same level of guy anymore. So he doesn't have the same amount of longevity and consistent production when he does play.
Yeah, I love Bruce Brown. Absolutely. I considered him strongly at 10. He's maybe a little bit like, even though I consider him at 10, there's probably like two guys I might have taken over him, but you're right in that he is. I mean, he was an incredible part of a championship team, and that does really matter. He just hasn't been able to really find his stride since. And the biggest thing is the assist numbers have dropped and the turnover numbers really haven't. And that's a pretty big problem. He's just not able to draw help in the same way. And he's never been some dominating scorer. Really fun player. Like, I really like Bruce Brown. I'm hoping that he can still be good for Denver next year. I'm assuming he's back. I honestly don't know that for sure. But really fun player, perfectly reasonable, guy there. I'm going to take Wendell Carter Jr. here at 12. This was like always known as like a big draft. Like, oh man, like all the centers, just to get it out there. DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley's really a center. Those guys go in the top 2. Some people would have said Jaren Jackson Jr. was a center. He's not. But some people might have said that, especially at the time when he was getting drafted. Mo Bamba at 6. Wendell Carter Jr. at 7. And then I guess that's really it for a long stretch until we get to Mo Wagner at 25. But it's funny, like, who's really hit out of this. Robert Williams, who was a late 20s draft pick, successful. Mitchell Robinson, who was an early second rounder, successful. I think Wendell Carter, of those guys in the top 7 who went, is the best of them. He started a lot. He plays a lot of games. He makes his shots. The biggest problems for him is that even though he can make threes, he doesn't take like an ungodly amount. Last year, he actually shot pretty poorly. Last 2 years, he has. Some of that, I think, might be the people that are passing him the ball. But he can't really do anything to like make plays out of it. Like, if he does get a closeout, it's not like he's going to put the ball on the deck. He's only an okay defender. He's like one of those guys who is versatile in that he can like kind of do some switching, and he can kind of do some drop, and he can kind of do some hedge or whatever. But like, he's not actually really good at anything. He's just kind of fine. He's just fine. He's a really fine big who starts a lot of games, which is nice. You could even make an argument that he's not even the best center on his own team, which is funny. But I'm perfectly happy. Like, this is if you're telling me at 12 in an average draft you're getting a starting center, I think that's fine. This is a perfectly reasonable guy at this level. Coop, where do you want to go with the 13th pick here?
This is another drop off for me. Once you get past 12, it's like, this is just role players. I thought DeAnthony Melton won a championship, but I was wrong. I thought he was in Golden State when they won the chip. So he would probably be next on my list. But in order to stay on theme, I'm going to take Landry Shamet here.
Wow.
Sniper. He got really unlucky with the injury bug, but this is a guy who he had been able to stay healthy, was a good contributor on good teams. Comes off the bench, especially this last year for the Knicks. I mean, really hustled, really transformed himself defensively, I felt like, from the beginning of his career. Played on those Nets teams, and he was a really important contributor there. Just plays hard, hustles, can really shoot the ball. And I really don't want to take Dante DiVincenzo. So I'm going to break my streak. Next pick.
I love Landry Shamet. He was one of the guys who, again, I didn't have a big board. I wasn't that serious about it, but like, who I would hear people talk about in pre-draft stuff back in 2018 and be like, oh, Landry Shamet, he's awesome. This just sounds like a guy. And so I like Shamet. He, like, the funny thing is, like, there was a stretch where he was basically just like, a very low level player. Not at all, barely a rotation guy at all. And then all of a sudden he's the 6th man on maybe 7th man, you would say, him or Mitch, on a championship team. He was really, really good. So I don't begrudge you that pick. I think he still has some years left to be really good. He's an excellent shooter, takes him off hard movement, and competes and defends. Like, there is something there. He's also, like, compared to someone like a Duncan Robinson, like, a little bit better at like putting the ball on the floor, making some passes here and there, being a positive possession guy. There is something to that. I'm going to take another guy who is in a very similar vein to the guy who I've taken Duncan Robinson. You've taken Landry Shamet. You've already mentioned Dante DiVincenzo. I'm going to take Grayson Allen, who I prefer to Dante DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo has been on more like popular teams and has had more like big scoring years, but I think Grayson Allen, for my money, is more likely to like contribute to really good teams. He just hasn't been on teams that are that level, but he's a better defender than DiVincenzo. Strong, can absorb some contact, guards up, even though he's fairly small. He's just a really good shooter. He's kind of just stuck around. Doesn't do anything special. I'm not going to pretend like this is like some unbelievable basketball career we're talking about, but he is, a very consistent shooter. Last year, he dropped off in percentage, but was taking a ton, 8.9 per game. If you told me this guy was going to start, I'd say, okay, yeah, he can start. Has just kind of bounced around. Was he in Milwaukee when they won the championship? Did he win a championship?
If he did and I didn't take him, I'm going to be pissed.
When did Milwaukee win the championship? 2021?
I think it was 21.
So he was after. He came after. But still, has been a consistent double-digit scorer. I mean, he scored 16.5 points per game last year. I think he's going to be pretty good on the Hornets this year. I don't know what his role is going to be necessarily, probably the backup for Brandon Miller, but just like a completely reasonable basketball player. Again, I prefer him to someone like Dante DiVincenzo, who is maybe a bit more like higher highs but lower lows. I think Grayson Allen is just steady. Like, I think he could be a playoff rotation guy. I think he could play in a finals game and look, on the level. So I like Grayson Allen. Coop, who are you taking here at 15?
Okay. I'm going to take DeAnthony Melton here at 15. I think he's the best player left. Elite defender. The shot has always been questionable, but guys who can defend at this level can cut, can just rebound pretty well. He's got good size. He can play on and off ball defensively. He can dribble a little bit. Good cutter, like just a valuable winning basketball player. He's bounced around the league a bit. He's kind of in that Jay Crowder level of good, where it's like he's good enough to get you somebody who you really want in a trade, but he's not good enough for you to actually want to just keep him around. So I really like him. It seems like he's found a home on the Warriors, and he fits in well with what they want to do. So happy to snag him here at 15, and he should have been a Rocket for his whole career.
The biggest problem is just that he can't stay healthy. If he's healthy, he probably goes top 10 in a redraft. If he just has a normal healthy career, but he hasn't. He just has. I mean, he's missed multiple like whole seasons. As I pull up his basketball reference, when he's healthy, he's awesome. He's just a really awesome basketball player. But completely missed 24, 25. Played in 38 games this last year in Philly. Last year he played in 49 games, which is like above average in his career. He had a good chunk of his career where, at the end of his time in Memphis, beginning of his time in Philly, where he was just awesome, just a really good player. He's never been crazy efficient either. Like, that's kind of the problem too, is he kind of has to be a bench guy because he's just not super efficient as a scorer. But just a really good defender, pretty awesome playmaker at times. Even if he never gets, like, the numbers never really pop, like, he just contributes on that end, but just never healthy, which is tough. We're really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here, it feels like, even though we were talking about how this is a deep draft. And it's so funny because it's making me realize how much time we spend on guys and how much I agonize over ranking the guys 15 through 20. And now it's like doing a redraft of like one of the all-time great drafts. And I'm looking at the 15 through 20 range and I'm like, would I rather have Jared Vanderbilt or Dante DiVincenzo? And it's like, why do I waste my time? I should only be evaluating obviously that's not fair because Shea is at 11 and Duncan Robinson is undrafted. But thinking about it in this sense is so funny because this is a deep draft in terms of guys who are still in the league, still on contract, still in some ways contributing. But it's like, I have no interest in talking about where I would redraft Sviatoslav Mikhailuk. Like, I don't care. It's just kind of a funny thing to think about. I'll stop the slide. I'll take Dante DiVincenzo. I think a lot of people would say that we should have taken him off the board forever ago. How do you spell DiVincenzo? We should have taken him off the board. Probably, I think a lot of people would say he probably should have gone above Bruce Brown. There are years where Dante is like awesome. Like, he's, as a scorer, he's really fun. Underrated, like horrendous defender. In my opinion, I think, he's really bad on the ball. Doesn't really make a ton of plays. His like advanced stats defensively are not awful. There's been times in his career they're really bad, I guess, but it's more just like, I'm not sure he's quite to the level of like actually good offensively. He can shoot. He shoots a lot of threes and he makes shots at a high level. Like, that's really important. I've just never really felt him, I guess, as like a really high level guy. Looking at his stats, they actually do kind of impress from like a number standpoint. He's a better passer, in terms of his assists than you realize. But you always wonder with a guy like that, like how much of that is him being on the right team? If you just replaced him with Landry Shamet for their whole career, is Shamet better at a given time? I think there's at least an argument, right? Like, he was definitely better for the Knicks in the playoffs this last year than DiVincenzo was when he was on the Knicks. So, and I think some of it is like, we're at the range of the draft too, where it's like, would you rather have a guy like DiVincenzo or like a Colin Sexton, where it's like, this is a bad star, but they're kind of a star and that they need the ball and they need to make plays and they just kind of don't do it at the level of other stars? Or would you rather have someone who's a good non-star? And it's kind of like where it's almost thinking of star is less about their like actual level in terms of rankings on the overall NBA spectrum, and it's more star about, well, stars have the ball and non-stars don't. Dante DiVincenzo has the ball. Landry Shamet and Wendell Carter don't, but I still would rather have those guys. So it's a fascinating kind of question. This is, I mean, maybe it does feel a little bit too low. He was actually like, again, in terms of pure box score stats, like really good for Minnesota last year. 37.9% on 7.9 3-point attempts. He takes really deep threes. He was not a particularly good interior finisher, did not take very many twos. But 3.8 assists, 1.3 steals, and 1.4 turnovers is good. And he had a really good, that was far and away his best advanced stat year too. And so it's obviously too bad that he's injured now and falling off. But before that, he had 3 out of the previous 4 years, he was somewhere on the spectrum of kind of bad to really bad. And so I'm just, I don't know how much to really believe about last year. It's too bad on the Achilles, and I'm not really factoring that in, but he will miss a whole year. So that's just kind of where I'm at with DiVincenzo. We're only going to do 4 more picks. We're kind of at the boring range, so I don't want to keep people bored forever. But I do think there's maybe a couple more interesting guys to discuss here. Coop, where would you go at 17?
Ooh, I think I have 2 guys who I'm going to pick, and I think the order will be purposeful. I think I'll take Gabe Vincent here. Just solid role player when he was in Miami, and then he goes to LA. He's the one in LA, and Strus is the one in Cleveland, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Vincent goes to LA and just suffers because he's on the worst or second worst organization in basketball, and just kind of gets killed. But I do think that just being a really good role player for a few years, he's been decent in minutes for the Lakers. Like these guys who maybe it is just a bit of heat magic, but high-end starter level role player for at least 2 years for Gabe Vincent. That at some point that's got to be more valuable than, hey, I can show up and play some good minutes in the regular season, even if I like someone like Vanderbilt better, right? I do think that Vanderbilt's limitations and injury stuff, it's just harder to take a guy like that here at 17, even if I think he's just objectively kind of better.
I think the reason I'm against taking Vincent here is I think he might just be done. Like I think he might be like out of the league after like halfway through this year. And I'm just not like, he's older than a lot of these guys. It'll be his age 30 season, maybe even age 31 season. He's just not, no, age 30, excuse me. Just not a very good player anymore. I mean, was really bad last year for the Lakers, and then barely played in Atlanta. Was out of the playoff rotation. There was really only, and then he, one of his years in LA, he just like completely missed the whole season. There's only really one. There's 2 years in Miami where you would say he was a legitimately good player, and even then, it's like still kind of marginal, not elite. So I'm kind of against him here. I'm going to take that type of regular season guy. I'm going to take DeAndre Ayton. Ayton is weird because he's bad, but he had 1 year where he was like a pretty good center on a team that made the finals. Now, that has way more to do with the fact that he had Chris Paul as his point guard than it has anything to do with DeAndre Ayton. But you could almost pretend DeAndre Ayton is like an okay center at times. And like, I actually think he'll be really good in Washington this year. I don't know what role he's going to play. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Washington, but like, I imagine he will be really efficient, like insanely efficient offensively. He's just really bad defensively. He's not really about the right things. He doesn't play particularly hard. He's just kind of like a whatever center. But I mean, he's been the starting center on multiple playoff teams. And he is just consistently like fine enough as like a role guy. And you just gotta you have to do, who DeAndre Ayton is? He's the modern version of Kendrick Perkins. Where it's like you have to let him do his like every once in a while he has to take a face up 10-footer just to like make sure he feels involved. But he does like something okay. And that's at 18, that's reasonable. This was the number 1 pick, Coop, in a draft with 3 obvious already in their career, like those 3 guys will be first ballot Hall of Famers. I'd imagine Jaren Jackson Jr. is at least going to have a chance. DeAndre Ayton is the first overall pick. That's just something that is worth noting. But he's also still young. Like he still has some runway, I think, to be like he'll have a couple more years of being like a reasonable player. He's 28. This will be his age 28 season. That's really young. There's still going to be 3 to 4 years left where he's like a perfectly reasonable rotation center on okay to good teams. Like if he's a backup center next year, he is probably a top 5 backup in the league. I mean, it's like Luke Cornett, and then it's probably DeAndre Ayton in terms of backup centers. Like for whatever that's worth, which it's at least worth around the 18th pick in a redraft. We talked about this year how, as weird as it sounds, like the 18th pick is like reasonable value for someone you're kind of projecting to be a good backup center. Doing these redrafts does kind of reframe that for me, where I'm like, yeah, like if you're getting an Isaiah Stewart at 16, he's mostly just a career backup. Like that's not a bad use of a 16th pick. So that's where I'm at. Coop, this is your last pick. Make it count. Who are you taking here at 19?
I was going to take Ayton. I was going to talk about how he was like the best center in the world for 1 year because he got to play with Chris Paul. And at some point, you know what? Chris Paul's a miracle worker, but that's so badass. That's so cool. That's like, and then his career falls off a cliff, gets paid $100 bajillion. I'm gonna say some of the names that I'm debating here. I'm gonna say like 3 names.
You quickly want to say, on Ayton again, that for what it's worth, he has 1 season that is better than any season that anyone we drafted starting at 8 has had. Starting at 8 with Robert Williams, there's 1 season DeAndre Ayton had where he was better than any of the other guys. If that was just who he was in his career, he actually probably goes at 6 in a redraft. He just didn't continue to play with that version of Chris Paul anymore. So for what it's worth, you're absolutely right that he had 1 year where he was like a top 5 to 10 center in basketball, which was really awesome. But now he's kind of mid. Anyways, go ahead. Who are the 3 guys?
I think he's actually absurdly mid. That's kind of the sad thing, is like he's like statistically fine, but like I can't condone losing basketball players, and so that's why I'm not going to take Anthony Simons. Sorry, Anthony. Like the most textbook losing basketball player of all time. I'm not going to take Sexton. I love Sexton. I think he tries really hard, which makes him a little different, but like small guard who just takes a bunch of shots. Um, and I'm not going to take the guy who I really want to take here, which is Devonte Graham, uh, who Bryce and I were fangirling a little bit about before the pod. Just like 1 year where this guy was on top of the world. What a beast. I love Devonte Graham. But I'm going to take Jared Vanderbilt. Just 6'9", good defensive big, a little too small to play center. I think he's also just ended up in some bad spots for his skill set, right? Like if he was back on Denver or on the Knicks, right, next to these like interior passing bigs, I really wanted him on the Rockets for a while because if he could just play next to a big who could make good interior passes, I think he would be just such a good player. But he's stuck on the Lakers where it's like he's just kind of treated as a normal pick and roll center, and that's not really who he is, right? He's really good at just taking advantage of advantages other guys create, and he's a good connector who I feel like hasn't really gotten a fair shake over the course of his career. So I'm going to take him here at 19. I know he can't shoot. I know he's not even that good at hitting layups, and I know he's injury prone, but he is good at basketball when he plays.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I had Jared Vanderbilt as actually the last guy in a tier. So now I'm going to name some names. These are all the guys who are just kind of still here, still in the league. We drafted everyone who I would say is like any type of at least kind of playoff rotation guy. And then we also drafted Gabe Vincent, who I did not give that grade, but I will not hate. Because for what it's worth, Jared Vanderbilt, like I still think on the right team could play in the playoffs. It's just that he's hurt all the time. Here are the other guys still in the league. Kevin Huerter, Anthony Simons, Josh Okogie, Colin Sexton, Gary Trent Jr., signer of the funniest contract in NBA history, that Coop was so tired of hearing one particular commentator tweet about that he sent probably the angriest text messages I've ever seen him send. Javon Carter, Mo Wagner, Marvin Bagley, Svi Mikhailuk, Haywood Highsmith. I'm not going to say his name, but someone that the Suns inexplicably traded a 2033 unprotected first-round pick for. Are we fucking serious? Kenrick Williams, cool guy. Jock Landale, Mo Bamba, Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate, Drew Eubanks, and Jordan McLaughlin. The guy I'm going to draft here is someone I'm betting on to have a big year. This is me out on a limb. This is my Stone Memorial overseas guy coming back over pick. I'm going to take Lonnie Walker the fourth. I love Lonnie Walker. If I had been who I was at this time and I had made a big board, like I probably would have had Lonnie Walker like fourth. I thought he was like the coolest guy of all time. I watched those Miami highlights and I was like, there is no way this guy fails. I saw someone legitimately compare him to Kobe Bryant at the time of this draft. And I loved him. Really fun player. Was a horrendous defensive player, even in Europe. Still is. It's just not who he is. Really fun scorer. I hope that it works out for him in Denver. I really like that pickup for him for them because that's a bench unit that honestly, like I believe strongly that the Nuggets just need to buy into just being like an insane offense. Like your defense is going to be capped. Like just try and fucking score as many points as possible every game. And Lonnie Walker, I think, could help with that. Like he's just an awesome, awesome offensive player, even still. Has dealt with tremendous hardship in his life and come through it. And I just think he's an easy guy to root for. He's back in the league this year. And I'm rooting for him. Is this the right pick? Probably not. I mean, Anthony Simons, probably a better player than Lonnie Walker. Kevin Huerter, probably a better player than Lonnie Walker. Kevin Huerter getting a like random $20 million contract is insane, by the way, but shooters just get $10 million now. It's just like, if you're a white shooter, you just will get $10 million. That's just like what the league has decreed. Adam Silver's NBA, everybody. But I like Lonnie, and I'm rooting for him. So interesting draft. Cooper, are there any big takeaways you have from this exercise as a whole?
Man, the middle class of this draft is so deep. It's so crazy. And there are just so many names. Like, we didn't even talk about like Yuta Watanabe, who had like a real career there for like 5 years, right? Like these guys who just showed up, fucked around for a little bit, and then were like, they were actually good. Like most of these guys who get a cup of coffee in the league, they're gone because they suck. It's like Yuta, it's because he missed a few too many threes, right? Like 1 year, and then he's just out of the league, right? And then
I
there's
want to say
just
the person that to me is like I'm most shocked is Shake Milton. I just really thought like Shake Milton was like a guy, and he got a cup of coffee, and he had moments where he was like really good. He had a year in Philadelphia where he averaged like 13 points and 3 assists on pretty good efficiency, and it's just never quite like all clicked together. Once he left Philly, it's like no team really believed in him enough to give him the usage that it would take. But that's another guy where it's like good player, played 7 years in the league. He's out now, and who knows if he'll get back. I think he's playing somewhere overseas. I don't know where exactly. But it's interesting, like who the league continues to hold on to and who they value versus who they don't. Like you said, Yuta had some real moments. Will forever be known as the guy who got absolutely murdered by Anthony Edwards. But was an okay like second side rim protector, rotation 4. But sometimes it's like, is the right team out there for you? Do they need that spot? And some guys slip through the cracks. It's kind of funny how that type of thing happens. But anyways, go ahead. You were talking about some major takeaways.
just, man, this class was so fun. I wish we had gotten to do this on the pod and talk about these guys. Isak Bonga was around the league for a few years. Alize Johnson, like, bounced around. It's just like, man, this draft would have been fun to do. Me, you, and Stone back in the old days when we were young and stupid. That like, to me, I think this draft is really about what does it take to be a winning basketball player more than anything. I think it's, at the end of the day, you want guys who try. You want guys who care. I think that's my biggest issue with Luka is just it doesn't feel like he cares all the time in the same way so many of these other guys do. And that's what I want. If I was building a team, what I would want is guys who give a shit. And this draft, I think, really exemplifies that. And I think that's kind of the big lesson you can take out of this class. It's why I would take a guy like Gabe Vincent over someone like Kevin Huerter. It's like Kevin Huerter's numbers are better, and he's been around the league longer. But Gabe Vincent tries, and for a few years there, he gave you some good production, right? Like, to me, I think that's what it's all about. So I don't know. This is a fun, really fun class, a great one to start with because we both were kind of nebulous, but like not fully like evolved and real evaluators at this point. So this was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think my two biggest lessons are for non bigs, some combination of field toughness and shooting is like that's what matters for guards and wings. It's like if you're going to be a rotation guard, you have to have some combination of toughness, feel, and either shoot like true shooting or at least potential shooting. You can say touch, you can call it whatever you want. Like so many of these guys, it's like they either have two of those things really high or they have a little bit of all three of those things or whatever. Like it's just that's who sticks in the again non-bigs in that 7 to 18 range. Like those are the guys who stick. They have feel, they have touch, they play hard. I think like once you're past those true star bets, like if they don't have those three things, like I'm just not interested. Like I think I'm getting to that point where it's like I'm not like this is a draft is an ultimate reminder to me of like why I don't care about like a Darius Acuff and why I think he's probably going to be bad. Like he doesn't have one and a half of those things in any degree. So he has to be Jalen Brunson. And even Jalen Brunson, if Jalen Brunson wasn't Jalen Brunson, he's still a top 10 player in this class because he has those three things. Like he is tough. Like he always could have just ramped up the defense. Like there's always things that he could have done. He was going to stick and make it in the league. It just was going to happen. I think the other thing is I really value stats and a stat basis for a lot of things. This draft is a nice reminder that it's like, especially your one college season stuff, like it's not everything. Like Trae Young, unbelievable college player, third best point guard from the draft, arguably four. I don't consider Luka a point guard because he doesn't guard point guards. Like to me, that's like a worthless designation. But you know, you could argue fourth best point guard from this class. Unbelievable statistical season. I probably like would have been the type of guy who would have been like, yeah, let's take Trae Young top 3. Like and I don't necessarily even think that's wrong process. Like if Trae goes top 3 in this draft, I don't think you're like necessarily upset with that. It's just kind of how it goes. It's a worthwhile bet to take, but there is always like context and things to find with everybody. Like Shea, reasonable but not elite stat profile. Like there were just things to find there, things to look for and dig through and figure out like how to get to that place. It's so funny that we're in a league that is dominated by non-blue chip prospects right now. Other than Wemby, the other two best players in the league, one went 11, kind of unheralded, and was traded after his rookie year. And then one went 41 or whatever. And that's, those are two of your top 3 players in the world. The other two, Luka and Wemby obviously were blue chip prospects, but it's just kind of interesting. Like that's the realm we're in right now. And so that's something that I want to continue to be conscious of. But yeah, like you said, really fun first draft to do. We're going to do 2019, we're going to do 2020, 21 and 22 in the coming weeks. I was looking through it. I've already built my big board for all of them because I'm a nerd. And it's fast. It's going to be really fascinating. A couple of those, like, so 2021 was when I started doing big boards, and I'm obviously not crazy happy with most of my evaluations, as you guys will find out, but really funny to go back and be like, oh man, he was in that draft and he was in that draft. Okay, where did I have that guy? Like it's just really fun exercise. So those will be fun as we start to get to those. But the next one will be 2019. Very famously having Ja and Zion at the top of it. Very excited for that. But this has been awesome. Please give us a like, rating, review, all that fun stuff. If you're listening, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment down below what you think. Were we too low on someone, too high on someone? Is our value on certain guys, especially in terms of putting like playoff equity over regular season production as we consistently did, is that problematic, you guys think? Is that emblematic of a hole in our evaluation process? Tell us how dumb we are down below. This has been the Upside Swings and Be a Draft podcast. We hope we hit our ceiling. Thank you.